Hey cousins, welcome to Brown Liquor and Bad Ideas.
Welcome, cousins, to this episode of Brown Liquor and Bad Ideas. I'm your host, Cornell Wright, the People's Lobbyist. So, cousins, today we're meeting on January 20th, 2021. This is the day in which President Biden and Vice President Harris were sworn in to be our new designated leaders for the United States of America. But let's step back for a moment. I want to thank and show appreciation to all of the cousins around the country who worked on this election this year. Whether they were poll takers, whether they were secretaries of state, whether they were the technology persons who were working for us, whether they were the cybersecurity people, a lot of cousins were involved making sure this election was secure. I also want to thank all the cousins who went out and voted, regardless of the circumstances in your state, regardless of the methodology of voting, your votes counted, and we had new identified, if you will, a new president being sworn in today. In particular, I want to call out and recognize those elected officials in Arizona and Pennsylvania who, to me, got additional scrutiny in regards to their electoral process. Not to mention the folks who were called in from Michigan, a couple of the electoral legislatures from Michigan were called in the White House to be asked to do something that was perhaps not appropriate. We've all heard the telephone call that most specifically the gentlemen from Georgia, were called by the president. And words were used in regards to things being dangerous if they decided they couldn't find 17,000 additional votes. Cousins, that was not a good thing. That was a bad idea. And those people who resisted those calls, those meetings, and those actions to do something that was incorrect and anti-democratic, they're patriots, and I want to toast them and say thank you. So, we now have President Biden and Vice President Harris in charge of running the country. I don't know about you, cousins, but this whole election season this time has been seemingly very long. We go back to the Democratic when they were having their initial primaries with all the candidates. They didn't have enough. They had so many candidates, they had to have 2 days. Okay? You can imagine all the energy that was involved by all those candidates and all those other people participating across the states. It finally got whittled down to elected President Biden and then President Trump. They then selected their respective running mates. Mike Pence continued as President Trump's, and Kamala Harris became the vice president selection for President Biden. I want to thank all four of those folks because they tried to work for us the best they felt and the best they could see what was good for the country. This election process was difficult for all of us, but we've made it and we've gotten to the end, and now it's going to be the job of President Biden and Vice President Harris to assume their positions and go lead the country. But the other side of this, cousins, is that we all had a class in the election process in civics in the United States of America. Your city, your state, your town, and the entire country. The electoral college count of vote never had this much attention as we had a few weeks ago, right? We've never even thought about it. It just happened. But then what happened, cousins? We had people who tried to go not only commandeer, but take over, rush, and burst into our Capitol. By the way, this is a $50 bill, okay? United States Capitol is on the back of a $50 bill. Cousins, it's a bad idea to try to infiltrate and crash into the nation's capital. Think about all the movies and the signatures and the symbolism associated with the United States of America. This is the United States of America. You don't mess with this. You think about it, cousins. You go back to all of the various marches and protests and activities that have occurred in Washington, D.C. Go back to the civil rights marches. I attended the second one, not the first one. The Million Man March. There was the Pink Hat March 4 years ago. All these various marches. There was Black Lives Matter March. All these marches. Not one of those marches ever desecrated any of our national monuments or any of our federal buildings. Not one. And then here's this group that decides that they want to come in and be non-democratic, not believing in democracy. And I'm going to tell you next episode what they were trying to do. It's wrong and it's a bad idea. Cousins, if you believe in law and order, it's time for it also to take a roll. So, here we are, cousins. We're at a new level, getting ready to step off into a new administration. Certainly, there are a lot of problems that we're confronted with right now. Not least of which we just talked about is that there appears to be cousins who don't believe in democracy. Cousins, we have a pandemic, which is still impacting too many cousins. Cousins are still dying, and many cousins are also being infected. We have an economic crisis that is impacting some cousins in a disastrous way, and other cousins are doing very well. We have an imbalance in regards to our recovery. All right? We can't forget the identification of systemic racism and how significant that has been. The planet is still difficult in regards to our environmental concerns and the climate change. Cousins, we have significant problems that we're all going to have to start to recognize and appreciate. There needs to be changes in order to modify these things and improve it for all of us. All of us, cousins. Everybody can participate, everybody can get a piece, but we may have to all give up a little bit at some point in time for us to get there. The first place we have to go as your people's lobbyist, cousins, is let's start talking about what's really important and what really are the solutions to the problems. Let's not worry about which side it's on or what you want to label it. Let's figure out what the solution is first. Then we decide which is the best way to implement it for all the cousins so we all get a chance to benefit. Continuing to be one way or the other, cousins, no one has all the good ideas. And how can we expect that any administration can have all the good ideas if we're not going to, support them with all of our ideas, let them know clearly what our concerns and issues are, and then let's come up with the best possible solutions. A number of years ago, as I mentioned to you, I was in China. And at that point in time, the leader of China, he was in the process of starting to change somewhat the Chinese economic system. And one of the phrases he used, which I think was very key at the time, and at that point in time, China still had a very large rural population. They weren't highly educated. But what his comment was, to make it clear, is he was talking about his economy. And he said it didn't matter whether the cat was a black cat or a white cat. The question was, did the cat catch mice? You follow me on that, cousins? Did the cat catch mice? So, cousins, let's recognize that we had escaped an exposure. We saw it. And as I've used on the show before, let me say it's very clear. You're going to believe me or your lying eyes. Let's address it, cousins, and recognize that hopefully this never happens in the United States of America again. I thank you for joining me today, cousins. I want you to continue to take care of yourself. Keep wearing your mask. Wash your hands. Maintain social distancing. I know it's getting tough. We're going into the winter now. But we have to continue to do this until everybody gets a chance to get the vaccine and we get a chance to get herd immunity. And hopefully if we do this, cousins, I mentioned to you last year, if we do it, we can get back to maybe baseball. How about that? All right, cousins, you take care of yourself. Let's keep working for a better us. That's U.S., because we're the people.
We are the people.